Let me just talk to these two ladies, because you too have had some sort of alien encounter, haven't you? Tell us about it.
Very similar, except that we were travelling home along the stretch of road we did regularly.
In a car?
Yes, so there was 3 of us. It was night time, and as we rounded a bend in the road, there was these lights in front of us. Now the lights were very bright, and you could actually see that the object was round or oval, depending on how you were looking at it.
A spaceship thing?
It was a UFO. We had never seen anything like it before. There was 4 very bright white lights, 1 at each compass point, and 2 red lights in the centre. And it was
round?
Yeah, well, round, oval, as I said. If you're looking at it from an angle, it's difficult to say whether it's round or oval. But it was definitely that shape.
You saw the thing at the same time?
Yes, all 3 of us saw the same thing. Yeah.
You hadn't been drinking? Or?
No.
No? You've never seen this sort of thing before?
Never. No.
Did anything get out of it or talk to you?
No, the car, Vivian, who was driving, tried to speed away from it because we were absolutely terrified.
Yes.
But very excited as well, but absolutely terrified. She put her foot on the accelerator and the car lost power. At which point the object was then in a field next to us, and Valerie and myself were watching it out of the side window. We have no recollection of it going from A to B, from being in the road in front of us to being in the field next to us.
It just sort of zapped there.
Well, all we remember, that was our conscious memory, is seeing the lights, then following it down the road, very, as I said, Vivian desperately trying to get the car to respond to her. And then some way down the road, the lights dimmed as if it was taking a surge of power, and it had gone, and at which point the car picked up speed.
And you thought to yourself, who can we possibly tell?
Well, that's right. Because there was 3 of us, if there'd only been 1, I would never have said anything at all, personally. But because there was 3 of us, then we felt.
And do people believe you?
Some.
Some not.
We take a lot of ridicule, but you get used to it.
Were you hypnotised?
Yes, we were, because we'd lost time. The journey actually took longer than it should have done.
And what did you remember or think you remember under hypnosis?
Very similar to what Maria said. I remember the shuffling feet under hypnosis. That was a big thing. Similar things to she's described, the 3 to 4 foot things that weren't actually humanoid or anything like that, more like robots.
Taking bits of you?
No, Vivian actually claims to have been examined under hypnosis. We had a different experience.
So they just shuffled around and then left you alone?
They looked at us, they took us into a room where we were put into some sort of machine. But this is all under hypnosis. This is what we've learned under hypnosis.
I'm afraid, I mean...
It doesn't, I mean, even like the same as Alan Godfrey's just said, it's difficult for us to believe, so we don't expect other people to believe it, because it's, you know, it's something that you just think, you know, if this actually happened. What is the point of us making it up? Our experience was 14 years ago. Would we really have gone through 14 years of being ridiculed by several people, newspapers, all types of people? Would we put ourselves through that if we didn't have something?
Describing being taken by some energy, blue light, by these small humanoid beings into spacecraft, subjected to these complex procedures, and they were not in touch with each other. They had physical marks on their bodies afterwards that corresponded to where they were probed, and there's nothing in my experience as a psychiatrist that operates like that.
They didn't strike you as barking, because... no, seriously, because... No, don't worry, we'll come... No, it's not. Because what I want to say is, we've done phone-ins, and I've listened to phone-ins and read articles with people who've been through these experiences before, and I'm always struck with a paradox. One, what they're saying is frankly unbelievable, but they sound totally believable.
Exactly. In other words, here was this paradox of these people who are, as far as I could tell, I've investigated 90 of these cases now, sound of mind, completely believable, not believing it themselves, telling me with great doubt, not trying to claim anything or sell me anything. In fact, rather disturbed when they would hear there were other people who'd had the same experiences, because that would blow their denial. Wanting to believe it was a dream. A point in the interview where I would say, well, tell me what happened. And they would say, well, I was in my bedroom watching TV, and then this blue light, and I said, well, you didn't say you'd been asleep. And then tears would come down their cheeks, and there would be this moment of shock because they would realize it wasn't a dream. Something had really happened.
Well, look, you two actually shared an experience together with a third friend who's now, she's gone to live in Canada or somewhere, hasn't she? Sort of, because she's actually was genuinely very upset by what happened. Back in 1982, just to summarise, you'd all been out to a nightclub, but you had not been drinking.
That's right.
This is, hand on heart, you'd not been drinking.
That's right.
Well, you've been drinking Coca-Cola.
Yes,
right.
That's all. Well, as we were travelling home, same journey as we did every week, We just saw some strange lights in the sky. That's all we thought it was to start with, except that the lights were extremely bright, and you could see that the base of this craft or object was either round or oval.
And you all three of you saw it?
Yes, because we all drew what we saw about 2 weeks later when an investigator spoke to us about it.
So what happened next?
The car lost power. We followed it down the road, it disappeared, and we reported it at the local police station because there was 3 of us. Had there only been 1 of us, we never would have done.
Yeah.
But because there was 3. Later on, about 2 weeks later, it was discovered that the journey had actually taken longer.
So hang on, so by the time you reported it to the police station, which seemed to you within minutes of you're actually leaving the nightclub, actually you found that hours had passed.
Well, we didn't, but the investigator did when he came and interviewed us.
He saw a discrepancy between what you saw as the time scale and what the actual time was.
Because when we got to the police station, we looked at our watches, obviously thinking, oh, what are they going to think going in at this time in the morning?
Yeah.
And also, of course, they logged the time that we went in.
So how did you discover what had happened in those lost hours?
Well, tell us.
Oh, right. Harry Harris, solicitor from Manchester, who's a UFO investigator, got in touch with us and asked us whether we would agree to undergo hypnotic regression.
Right.
We were a bit sort of dubious about it, but we eventually agreed to go.
You went. Now, which of you? One of you had difficulty. Actually,
Yes, that was me.
Was that you?
Yes.
What did you, when you went under hypnosis? What did you remember?
Once you actually get through the conscious memory, the first experience was just to experience very strange body changes, of which frightened me, and they brought me out of it. The second time, they took me through that fear until I described being in a room alone and being extremely frightened, not knowing where Valerie or Vivian were. There was a doorway in the room and a table. They asked me to look through the door and I refused, and then I said I could hear someone coming, and I was extremely frightened, but I got onto the table, and they said, why are you getting on the table? And I said, because I know I've got to. And they said, how do you know? And I said, I just know. And then I was looked at by 6 robot-type creatures.
Robots?
Robots.
What,
that's how I
humanoid
did.
sort of robots with
No,
hands
they
and
were
arms?
definitely robots. They'd got no features, because they said, well, how do you know they're looking at you? And I said, well, I can tell that they're looking at me, because they didn't touch me or anything.
But what I mean is, were they robots built in the shape, in the rough shape, like a crash dummy, you know?
They got round type heads, round bodies on round coasters.
Right.
And that
Made
was
of
it.
metal?
Yes, yeah.
So-
Nothing about them that looked humanoid or anything like that.
But then 2 other beings, much more humanoid beings, came into the room.
No, that was with Valerie.
So your memories were kind of different.
Our stories were totally different at this point, all 3 of us.
Yeah. And what were the beings who came when you went into hypnosis?
They were sort of 6 foot tall. There was a male and a female. I've been asked, how did you know? And I thought, well, I just knew that they were male and female.
And the female tried on your shoes?
Yeah, well, they seemed very interested in my clothes, what I was wearing, and the female tried on my shoes.
Were they humanoid? Did they look like us?
Yes, apart from they got very...
we were there.
their eyes were very sort of bright blue.
Right. Now, to come back to you, John, is that kind of experience, that although these 2 ladies aren't in your book, because obviously you did your research in America, is that a common story, this feeling of being examined somehow?
Yes, that part's common. The terror, the kind of pushing through the terror. The beings they're describing are not typical of the most common type in the United States, which tend to be smaller, 3.5 to 4 feet tall, with these huge black eyes.
That was what Vivian saw.
That's what Vivian
That's
saw.
what Vivian saw.
So but there are other types described, like taller, luminous ones, more robotic ones, like she described, are also seen, more reptilian.
So what conclusions are we drawing from this? If these people aren't hallucinating, if they're not part of some kind of mass psychosis, if they are experiencing something, what's your conjecture?
Now, of course, that's a 64 billion pound question. I mean,
we can't pay you if you answer it.
I mean, you know, I've finally come after thousands of hours. I was told for 2 years, don't say what you think here. Don't say what you think. Just say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, you know. But after a while, the pattern becomes so powerful, so dense, that the only thing, I mean, no kind of psychiatric illness, so not hallucinating, fantasying, some other kind of trauma, none of it begins to work, because you have the UFOs, you have the cuts, the scoop marks, the independent witnessing, the people are absent. So some kind of another intelligence seems to be trying to knock on our doors to to get through to
there
us.
is something here.
Like the crop patterns you have here,
But
too.
why do we must sort of wrap this up and carry on later in the programme because we're taking our phone in on it, but why do it in such a kind of small and individual way? If there really is another intelligence, why not sort of suddenly come down here and say, hey, you know, I'm here on national television or something?
Well, we like things this way or that way, you know, it's a subtle matter. It's perhaps preparing us slowly, gradually, letting us, because if they kind of showed up en masse, we'd panic or send out the RAF or something.